Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
But here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and I can't wait to get started. Hey, it's the waning days of summer. It's hot out there, folks, but fall football is coming. That's right. Fall officially starts in a couple days. We'll have it here this weekend. Well, who are we kidding? It's South Louisiana. We're not going to have fall for at least another month and a half, but look forward to some good football coming up. Hopefully it'll be better than what we just saw this past weekend, because most of our favorite teams down here in South Louisiana, man, they took it on the chin this weekend, and it was hard to watch. First up, it was the Tulane Green Wave. Hey, look, the Green Wave had a surprising 14-7 lead in this game, but they gave up 49 straight points to Baker Mayfield and company. They just put it on the Wave and ended up winning that one 56-14. They did have some bright spots early, but Tulane won't face a tougher opponent all year long and probably for the next few years. Hey, next up, that was LSU at night. Hey, remember what happened there, LSU? Well, they looked okay early in this game. They had a couple TD passes called back, but very questionable calls. No excuses made here, though. It was all downhill from there. MSU, Mississippi State, absolutely lived in LSU's backfield all night long, and the Tigers got a huge dose of a guy named Nick Fitzgerald, who you see right there. He threw 2 touchdowns. He ran for a couple more. He is just dynamite in the air and on the ground. He does it every single week, and LSU was no exception. And then there was Sunday. I think we all know what happened on that day. The Saints, well, they were coming off that embarrassing Monday Night Football loss in Minnesota, but they had to face an angry Super Bowl champion New England Patriot team, who, by the way, was coming off their own embarrassing loss. And an even angrier Tom Brady, who, by the way, some national pundits foolishly were trying to say the guy was over the hill at 40. I don't think this guy's going to be over the hill for quite a while. And by the way, the Saints, obviously, you know the score of the game. They ended up losing 36-20. They were really never in this game. They kind of cut it to 2013. You thought they might have a chance. We'll get into more of that later. Trust me, this is going to be a big Saints-LSU-Tulane show. We're going to get all deep into it. But also, it doesn't help, by the way, the Saints, the 0-2 Saints, have dug themselves into another hole, and they are in a division where everybody else seems to be undefeated. The Atlanta Falcons, Super Bowl runner-ups last year, they're 2-0. The Carolina Panthers, they've had an easy run. They played San Francisco and Buffalo. Not very hard, but they're 2-0. And Tampa Bay, boy, did they look impressive against the Bears. And they are 1-0 because they had their first game canceled because of Hurricane Irma. Back to college football, though. UL Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, like the Green Wave early in the game, they had some early success in that game against Texas A&M this weekend. A tough place to play at Kyle Field. They actually led the Aggies 21-14 at the half. But A&M, well, they do what good teams do. They scored 31 straight points to beat the Cajuns 45-21. I got to give it up because the Louisiana teams like Nichols and UL Lafayette have played good ball the last few weeks against that Texas A&M team. Hey, by the way, speaking of the Colonels, congrats to them. For the first time in 10 years, The Colonels are in the FCS Top 25. Tim Rebowe is doing some great things there. Remember, they had a few winless seasons down there in Thibodaux. Hey, by the way, Sunday was also the 50th anniversary of the Saints, the very first game ever played here in New Orleans in the NFL, September 17th, 1967. Well, it was in the old Tulane Stadium. For you youngsters out there, that used to be right there on Willow, not far from the new stadiums. 81,000 screaming fans were at this game. And the Saints faced, well, the LA Rams back in the day. That fearsome foursome, if you're old like me, you remember these guys. Well, I don't remember this game particularly. I was a little young for this one. But, hey, guys like Deacon Jones, some say that one of the meanest defensive linemen ever, Rosie Greer, who you used to see on those light beer commercials doing some knitting, and Merlin Olsen, another guy did some commercials with some flowers, I believe. They were fearsome. But the Saints, well, they had Packer Hall of Famers. They had a couple guys that had played Super Bowls with the Packers. One was Paul Hornick, who, by the way, never, you see him there, not dressed out. Well, he never ended up dressing out for the Saints, but he was on the team. And by the way, the other back was, well, LSU All-American and Packer Hall of Famer Jim Taylor, who retired after the first year. But that day, John Gilliam was the guy who stole the show. We know it well. The very first play in Saints history, John Gilliam got the kickoff. He returned it for a touchdown. It was a magical start. But then again, as the Saints have known for many times in their Saints history, they lost that game. But as far as local heroes in the NFL go right now, how about one named Leonard Fournette? This guy, highly touted coming out of St. Aug High School. He lived up to the billing with LSU. He ended up being the 4th pick of the draft, and he has had a TD in each of his first 2 games, and he's averaging almost 95 yards from line of scrimmage in these first 2 games. So congrats to Leonard. Another LSU player, Quan Alexander, kind of gets lost in the shuffle when you talk about these linebackers that have come out a little bit lately. Debo Jones with the Falcons. Obviously, this year was Duke Riley with the Falcons, but Quan Alexander the year before was that unsung guy, and he just got some praise on ESPN. Louis Riddick, NFL analyst with ESPN, just called him a top 5 linebacker in the entire NFL. That is high praise from a guy who I respect a lot. And by the way, Tulane, they got some love this weekend. Their former wide receiver, Ryan Grant, you remember him? He used to team up with Ryan Griffin for touchdowns. He had the game-winning touchdown with 1.5 minutes to go in the game against the Rams for the Redskins, and they won that game 27-20. Congrats to Ryan Grant and the Tulane Green Wave alum. Hey, by the way, in Oakland this weekend, Marshawn Lynch, is anybody having a more fantastic time than him? He comes back to his hometown, and there he has a little celebration dance. He's shaking his hair. He had the whole crowd going nuts. Congrats to him for that first TD. I think it's the first of many more. On the flip side of happiness, Younghoe Koo, who, by the way, kicked for Tulane's Willie Fritz when Fritz coached at Georgia Southern. Well, he missed that game-tying field goal on Monday night against the Chargers at the end of the game, and a game-winning one at the end of this game against the Dolphins. Too bad for the rookie. He's going to have brighter times coming forward. Hey, by the way, the Chargers in that same game, they lost to the Dolphins. Hey, you remember a guy named Antonio Gates? He used to play hoops, like one of my guests coming up, Dino Hansen, but he ended up becoming a great tight end, like Tony Gonzalez, who also played hoops at Cal. Well, Gates just broke Tony Gonzalez's TD records for tight ends in the NFL, 112. And here's a little side note. You see Rivers hugging him? Those 2 guys, Gates and Rivers, have combined for 85 of those 112 TDs. That is 3rd all-time in NFL history for a QB receiver combination, behind some greats like Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, who were first with 114. Steve Young and Rice had 92 together. Here's an interesting note there. At 6th place tied, we have a little New Orleans connection. Breeze and Colston, well, they had 76. And Manning and Reggie Wayne with the Colts, well, they are both from New Orleans, obviously, and they had 76 as well. The other team that was tied for 76 just broke it, the 2-0 of Gronkowski and Brady. Well, they just broke it up to 77, so then now in 5th place, and they did it against our New Orleans Saints on Sunday. Hey, by the way, the Cleveland Browns, how about this stat? Joe Thomas from Wisconsin, who, by the way, was fishing when he got drafted. He was the 3rd pick of the draft. He said, I'm not going to New York. I'm just going to do what I always do. He's a man's man, but this man, 11-year veteran, just played his 10,000th straight snap. That's right. He's an offensive lineman, by the way. He had LCL, MCL, high ankle sprains and tears. He plays through all that. He has never missed a single snap as an NFL offensive lineman in over 10 years. That, my friends, is remarkable. Hey, by the way, good news for the Saints. I hate to be the bearer of, saying somebody else's demise is good for you, but a guy that has murdered the Saints recently, Greg Olsen, will not be playing this week. He broke a foot, so he's going to be out for 6 weeks. Hey, also, Giancarlo Stanton. We're going to go to baseball for a second. Giancarlo Stanton last night hit his 55th home run. Steroid-free, by the way, and he is looking for 5 more to tie Babe Ruth, 6 more to get to Roger Maris. The other guys, McGuire, Sosa, and, of course, Barry Bonds, have some steroid-tainted issues. But before McGuire did steroids, back in '89, he hit 49 home runs. And Aaron Judge, by the way, for the Yankees, hit his 44th last night. He is chasing that rookie record. He's 5 away. So there's your baseball news. There's your football news. But this show is going to be great. We're going to talk some basketball because I've got Dino Hanson. He's coming in, former Oregon star, former St. Aug star, played overseas. He's been on this show before. He is the ultimate Pelican insider. He's going to be here talking Pels, but we're going to cover in depth. There's no Hall of Famers, although Dino's probably got a few himself, but no NFL and NBA Hall of Famers, no All-Stars and that stuff. This is all business. We're talking with Gus Kattengill and Renee Nadeau. We're going to talk all about the Saints, the LSU Tigers, and, of course, the Tulane Green Wave. We're going to speak about the woes and how they can get better right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned.
Scotty says, I watch my TV show. Scotty says, on Primetime Sports. Scotty says, I watch my TV show. I got the Primetime Sports. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I told you in the open, we're going to go down the information highway. We're not going to have any of these Saints Hall of Famers, LSU Hall of Famers. We're getting the people that know what's going on with your teams. I'm going to have Dino Hanson talking Pelicans coming up next. Renee Nadeau, who's been around this town for a long time. He's a first-time guest. And this next guest, my very first guest today, is a first-time guest as well. His name is Gus Kattengill. When I first moved to New Orleans, back to New Orleans, well, he and I were on the radio for 4 or 5 months. I replaced Larry Holder on the Sports Hangover. You cannot replace Larry Holder. News to the next person who tries to do that. But we've had fun for the last 5 years. He's at ESPN Radio New Orleans, and I was there, and he's doing a great job. He covers all the teams so very well, particularly the New Orleans Saints and the Tulane Green Wave. He is a sideline reporter for the Wave football. He calls the games for the Tulane women. He's a jack of all trades. He writes some as well. His name is the G-Cat. The G-Cat's on it. Gus Kattengill.
Friend. Finally.
Welcome.
Yeah, it took a while to get here, but
to
finally
the
got
show.
here. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you had your show
kind
of around the time I taped, so now we're working
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a
But
little,
I'm glad you're here.
it's awesome.
All right, I'm sorry the circumstances because it was a bad weekend. And we're going to start.
Yeah.
We got to jump into it, Gus. First of all, tell people what you're doing. I know Eric Asher usually starts his way that way.
Right.
I don't generally do it, but since it's your first time, let people know what's happening at ESPN Radio.
Yeah, man, just doing that, like you were saying, 1-3 weekdays. And then now we added a Thursday show with John Forcade called Game Time.
And a Saints postgame?
And a Saints postgame show.
I'll listen.
All 16 weeks. We'll be live at Buffalo Wild Wings on Veterans in Severn and Metairie. So it was a quiet first show at Buffalo Wild Wings this weekend, but there's so much to talk about. And, you said that Dino's coming. It's funny. I don't know. I'm looking at the should we be looking forward to Pelicans already? Because it's starting to get there.
Listen, at halftime,
Right.
It was 30-13. I was thinking Pelicans, you know me in basketball.
Right.
I love my football, but I'm like, well, you know what? Media Day is next Monday.
Exactly
I'm starting to
right.
look forward to it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this team. Let's just jump into it because we're going to talk about all of them. We're going to get into Tulane. We're going to get into LSU. But the Saints has the pulse down in the Crescent City. 4 straight years they're 0-2. Will it be the 3rd straight year they're 0-3?
Well, here it is. How do you want to look at it? Do you want to look at it as a sense of doom already, you're starting bad, or is it what expected? I opened the post-game, Scott, and said, what did you expect today, right? You're facing the New England Patriots.
I expected
what did you
1-1 at best.
Well, I expected
to lose to this
improvement,
team.
right? I expected improvement. I think the thing that's bothering fans is in the first 2 games, you didn't look competitive, right? So at the very least, bare minimum, Minnesota's a playoff team. I mean, think last year they were 8-8. They lost their starting quarterback.
Yeah, they were 5-0, and they were the toast of the NFL.
And they lost Adrian Peterson as well. So you lost Bridgewater, you lost Peterson. So you had to find a starting quarterback, and you were still 8-8. That's not bad. Before that, they were 11-5. They're better than the Saints right now.
Yeah.
So you look at the defending champs. It was funny, right? Sam Bradford on one knee is going bananas, and fans are going, "What would he looks like Tom Brady?" And then you went, "Uh-oh, what's Tom Brady going to do?"
Especially Tom Brady with 10 days off, and he got embarrassed on national TV.
Well, what did he do? 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. That's what Tom Brady does. So You can look at it from the first perspective, Scott, of, oh boy, did they improve? Where's this defense that we saw that had, 17 sacks or so in the preseason? It's not translating. Well, they got pressure to Tom Brady. They just didn't finish the job. The tackling wasn't that. I'm more concerned of the offense in terms that I openly said this, not only on the show, but just when we're at practice. You're at training camp practices, and you're talking with people left and right of you, and you're looking at the running backs. Kamara looks like you're going to have to give him some touches, right? He's special. Ingram's a 1,000-yard back, and you're bringing in Peterson. And I openly would say, how are you going to use the running backs? I don't know. And
they're starting to figure it out. They don't know either.
Well, and I don't think you can lose a Brandon Cooks. I don't think you can not have a Willie Snead in your first 4 games and it not affect your offense. You saw twice against Minnesota and twice against New England, 2 instances with Tommy Lee Lewis and Ted Ginn where they just go a little bit where Drew Brees is not expecting it, and it's an incomplete pass, and the ball lands at the goal line, Scott. Those could be touchdowns. That's 14 points in 2 games that probably Snead,
Gus, I got to give you some props because this is a voice of reason, Gus, that I remember I first started was Bounty Gate year with you in the air, and we were panic buttoning after 01, 02, 03, 04, hitting that panic button. And you are voice. I heard it last year with the Pelicans, and you were explaining to people that just want to see wins. Right. And you're trying to explain, and I'm seeing it now because they are factors. And some people call them excuses, but they are factors that go in. And you mentioned something that hit me literally yesterday. Willie Snead, I'm not saying he's the greatest receiver in the league, but you can't take a guy that Drew looks to get that first down every single time.
3rd down catches.
And that's what he does. And he's not there for 3 games. And, we didn't know this, that he had the DUI in June. At least I didn't.
But you know who did?
Until Sean.
The coaching staff.
Yeah.
And so I think it is absolutely fair to then say, should they have played more together in the preseason? Should Drew Brees have seen more snaps with guys that they knew were going to get? Because, Scott,
Great point.
It's timing. It's what it is. And I think the thing that stood out to me, again, I know it's New England. Look, they only scored 6 points in the second half. Now, they were dropping like flies. They only had 3 active receivers, and Gronk got hurt.
Well, can I say something real quick on that? Because I'm glad you brought it up. There's 2 ways to look at that. They got it together. The Saints didn't play great defense, or Belichick and obviously Coach Payton have a pretty close relationship, and maybe he didn't want to pour it on his buddy. Either way.
I think the thing that you see more than anything is you hear them especially speak in the locker room on Monday, and they're talking about how close they are. Marcus Williams says they are improving by the week, which is laughable to most fans. They're going, you've given up 500 yards a game on offense. How are you improving? A.J. Klein sits there, Scott, and says, we're there. He says, I can show you on game film.
Right.
We're there to make the plays. We're hair late. We're second late. So the first thing, as you and I do when we analyze things, okay, well, why are they late? Well, they're young, and we've talked about this. I know you have. I've heard you say it, and I know I have as well. You have a young defense, and the Saints on the D-line have second-year players, and Rankins and Davidson. Hendrickson's a rookie. I mean, Kikaha's a third-year player.
But like a rookie, basically.
Right, in the back end, you're starting Lattimore, who's a rookie. P.J. Williams and Crowley, he's a rookie. Marcus Williams is a rookie. I mean, they're young. So there's going to need to be a growing process. The problem is you're starting against a tough, first 4 games. And I think they're going to be better later. But that's the problem with youth. Now, that said, fans have that syndrome, right? I mean, they're sitting there, and all they're seeing is inability to stop anybody, and now they're seeing an offense that they could count on. And you're seeing Drew Brees walk off the field doing it. He looked so dejected Sunday, and it's just because in the past, Scott, they had an offense that could overcome a holding call to Andres Pete in Minnesota instead of 1st and goal to Kuhn. What would you see a couple years ago? Brees would just throw in the end zone for a touchdown. They wound up settling for a field goal. They could overcome 2 defensive penalties that gave Minnesota 3 points in that first drive, right? They had 4 penalties for 45 yards in the first 2 drives of the game. They couldn't overcome it. You saw the attitude, the confidence. It's a different time.
Unfortunately, New Orleans fans are starting to realize what most of the NFL deals with offense and quarterbacks, other than places like Green Bay, other than places like New England, and I hate to say Atlanta. Those are fine-tuned offenses, and even them sputter sometimes, but the Saints are struggling. Hey, real quick, you mentioned one guy who I think, if I had to bet money, a future star is my man Marcus coming out of the backfield. Like, defensive backfield. He got the interception that got turned away. By the way, can any other team besides the Saints have 2 interceptions in a space of 4 plays and have them both?
That's where they are right now, right?
And have them both ejected because of penalties. Tom Brady's like 12 minutes of the field, 12 minutes of the field.
No, that's how it works. Look, Marcus Williams is a ball hawk, and I think he's going to be there. And I think that's interesting because that's where you start seeing the talk of Kenny Vaccaro. Because, again, you can look at very real reasons as to why this team is 7-9 the last 3 years, why they're struggling right now. It's youth and stuff. The thing that I think is hard to write down as to why it's happening is this locker room sort of antics that Sean Payton's sort of doing, right? I mean, Delvin Breaux, it's a message being sent. He broke his leg. I know. And now it's Vaccaro.
That was embarrassing.
It's not usual for teams to go after starters.
It's crazy,
you know what I'm saying?
it?
So there's a lot of drama already in the first 2
There's
games.
a lot of drama. Speaking of drama, LSU fans, there's a lot of drama going on up there. It's one game.
Right.
They did get blown out.
Right.
Les Miles only lost 2 games in 148 tries by more than 21 points.
Right.
Florida in 14, Auburn in Auburn in 14, I think Florida in 08.
Right.
Point being is, this is a 30-point game and Orgeron's 3rd game. But do we need to worry yet?
Scott, I'm baffled by the fact that as the game is going on, because I'm in Norman, right, with the Tulane game.
Sure.
And I'm checking out the phone, and after the game, we get in the car, head to the airport to OKC.
Graf had to be laughing his butt
It's a 20, 30-minute drive. And we could get, the game on up there. We're listening to the post game. The amount of people that were calling for Les Miles to return was laughable.
Is it unbelievable?
I mean, it's laughable, right?
And I was with Les Miles.
Right.
I was actually with Les Miles watching the game.
Right. Well, what's funny, that had to be weird, right? Because here's the thing. And then the fans on Monday calling for not only but the staff. Aranda's not as good as he is. Who's this Canada guy? He can't hack it in the SEC. They're doing, fire a leave. I'm like,
it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It's the first conference game for this coaching staff.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Mullen's probably considered the 2nd best coach in the SEC. You got out-coached. Just chalk it up to it. They're a young team.
And they might have the best quarterback.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. He's not
time.
greatest passer, but he's the best all-around. I got to get to Tulane because my Tulane friends would be upset. You are the sideline reporter. You have been for many years. Mm-hmm. Despite the 56-14 loss, they were up 14-7 to me against one of the top 2 or 3 teams in America. I see hope on this team. They did it without their quarterback. What do you see?
It is hope. I can tell you that. And this is just not because I'm there and I'm watching it. Fritz and his staff can coach, but he's not going to, sugarcoat stuff. There's games that he expects to win. There's games that he expects to play. He needs the players. He's starting to get that. You're starting to see a little better play at quarterback. Dontrell Hilliard's a real deal running back. You're starting to see some guys on defense sort of step up. And look, when they were up 7-0, they tied it 7-7. Then they went up 14-7 before they tied it at 14. Those were 2 legit drives. It wasn't Oklahoma fumbled the snap and gave them a short field. They drove the length of the field. They created a turnover in the Oklahoma opening drive to score 7-0. Yeah. So in that first quarter, you can take a lot out of that, Scott, and build on that. Because as I talked to Coach for our pregame this week, it's simple. You can take that game and move on from it. Because if you can handle 86,000 on the road, you can handle anywhere in the American Conference.
Gus, I'm gonna put you on this Tulane helmet,
you're
bro.
You're gonna ruin the helmet.
That's all right. I'm putting you on it.
Put me all the way in the back, and can I sign
right
inside?
Here. Sign the inside of the helmet.
Sign the inside.
Here's a gift certificate. Take your beautiful wife.
Appreciate
Anna,
it.
That'll get you started on a few glasses of wine. Gus Cattengill, check him out. 1 to 3 every day on ESPN Radio New Orleans. And speaking of that, I've got another ESPN guy. His name's Dino Hansen. We're going to switch gears. We're going to get back to the football with Renee Nato later. But coming up next is going to be Dino Hansen. That's right. He is on Gus's show all the time. In fact, he's going to be on every day. He's a great basketball analyst. That's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. We'll be back right after this. Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both diehard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Rock and roll will never
my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's both let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. We're going to take a break from the football because it's been a rough weekend, and we're going to get to where there's a little hope right now in this town. Hope always springs eternal before the season starts, and that's where it stands with the New Orleans Pelicans. They made a lot of moves, both in the All-Star break last year, bringing in Boogie Cousins, and of course in the offseason, you're bringing one of the best defensive players in the land, and that is Tony Allen. And of course, Rajon Rondo coming over. He has got a ring, and he brings some leadership at the point guard position. And, oh, by the way, you did re-sign Drew Holiday, who seems to be fully healthy finally. So we're going to talk all this with a guy you know well. He calls himself Dino Hoops. I call him Alfred. That's right, Alfred Dino Hansen. You can't escape your born name. I'm Donald. So we have to live with these things. Here he is, former St. Aug great. He graduated in 87, went on to Oregon, University of Oregon, played for those Ducks, whack, whack. And now he is back in New Orleans. He's an actor. He does commercials. He does movies. He does it all. But he's right here on Primetime Sports
my
again.
Man.
What's up, my man?
Scotty A.
What is up?
The energy, the excitement.
Yeah.
You see, I'm ready to go, man.
We always have fun.
Training camp, Pels. Look at me.
And for you Pelicans fans that always say, you always take Dino off too fast, we're giving him some time today. So let's just get after it.
Thank you.
Let me do it. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
It's always great to have you.
Always good to be back. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you're energized and renewed and just rejuvenated.
I got hair back, man. You see my hair's growing back right here? It's
Absolutely.
all good. I'm getting healthy.
Yes, yes.
Hey, let's have some fun. Hey, training camp starts next week. Media day is Monday, less than a week away. Are you excited going into the season?
This is the most excited I have been about this team.
Okay.
Not just because of the talent that we have, but the culture shift. You have to give Dell a lot of credit, although he's taken a lot of the heat in the past.
Sure he has.
The fact that we were able to get Boogie here. Here's the other great thing about Boogie. He is politicking for other players to come here and play in this city.
That was huge to me, to see that.
That bodes well for the direction of this Pelicans basketball team. You're able to get a Rajon Rondo. You're able to get an Ian Clark. You're able to get a Tony Allen. And the reason why I mentioned those guys is because they all bring championship pedigree.
Yes, they do.
Changing the culture in the locker room. Guys who know what it takes to win.
People forget Tony Allen was with the Celtics on those teams before he became probably better well-known for his defensive prowess with the Grizzlies, as you see right there. But did this piece right here, which might seem unheralded a bunch, he's a little up in age, but 6 out of 7 years he was all defense. How important is that for this team, which is pretty offensive-laden?
A lot of people have asked me, well, Dino, why would we do that given the fact that Tony Allen has a problem when it comes to spacing, scoring? Well, in case a lot of people don't know this, we have enough guys on this team that can score. And Boogie, AD, Drew, those are your 3 main cogs. But what Tony will be able to do is put the ball on the floor, because you still have to respect any player that's on the floor. He might not put up 20 or 30 points, but let's not forget when he was at Oklahoma State, he could score. He put up 16 points per game. I'm not saying that we need him to be an offensive guy. But those intangible things that he brings, the extra rebounds, the spacing issues will resolve themselves when you have a Tony Allen on your court.
And toughness.
Toughness.
Yes.
Let's not forget, he was considered the grind father in Memphis. He is a guy who doesn't mind sticking his nose in any situation, and he's going to make this team tougher. Let's not forget, as much as AD is my guy, and I love AD, he's not that vocal, bring that tenacity to you. Tony Allen and Rajon Rondo, they do, Scotty A.
And if you're talking about being called the grind father with that grind team when they used to have Zebo and obviously Mark, obviously Gasol, that means you're a grinder.
Conley. Exactly.
But hey, moving forward, you mentioned a guy earlier, and speaking of what you just talked about with the people talking about space, because we know how spacing is so important in the NBA. You have to get open threes. And when obviously Alvin Gentry came over from Golden State and that free-flowing offense where they always seem to have open threes, you still have to have some guys fill in. So the Ian Clark signing to me is big because this is a guy you got on the cheap because he didn't get a lot of minutes there, but he's a 3-and-D classic guy. And you also, it's going to be amazing when now you see how guys that couldn't get open shots last year, how their three-point percentage might go up. And I'm talking to you, Etwan Moore, because his percentage has always been in the 40s. It got down to the 30s because they didn't have to guard anybody else. Now you have to double team others. So talk about how important that is for those guys, and don't forget instant grits.
Instant grits is used. Let's start back first. Let's start on the back end first because you can't minimize the importance of your bench. And Jordan coming off of that bench, and he knows what his role is on this team. That's to put it in the hole.
He scores.
Okay, that's what he does.
That was a great pickup.
That was a fantastic pickup. And again, you have to give Dell credit for
being
able to manage.
I feel the only one in town that gives him some credit.
No, because you know I've
You
been.
and me.
But here's the great thing about it. You bring a guy like Ian Clark in who knows the culture of what it takes to win. He's been around these guys.
He's got one of these this year.
He's got a ring.
Yes, sir.
Okay? That is something that you cannot forget about in the importance of saying, guys, this is what we need to be doing to win. Same thing with Rajon Rondo. But let me add this to that aspect of it all. A JaVale McGee, a Zaza Pachulia, how effective are they on the offensive end? But they do the dirty grunt work nobody. And you have to have that, and that's what a Tony Allen brings.
Right.
And Ian Clark, he is a guy that can score. He didn't have a lot of opportunities, but who does?
He might get 20 minutes a game if he plays well.
Exactly.
Right.
But who did get a lot of minutes when you've got a Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and a Klay Thompson? Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, be
Draymond
honest.
Green, by the way.
Be honest
say
about
he's a top 10 player.
Exactly. So the pieces that we have here are all integral pieces. The fact that Drew, we all know, is a better shooting guard than he is a point guard. So you have a Rajon Rondo who's not looking to score.
Beautiful.
He's looking to penetrate.
Right.
He's looking to get everybody else involved. And let's not forget, this past season playoffs, they had the lead on Boston until Rajon Rondo gets injured.
No, you're right. 2-0. They won both games in the Garden.
Exactly. So he gets injured. It changed the landscape of that series. So his importance, and I've been wanting Rajon Rondo here, literally, at least the past 2 seasons because I know the culture that he brings. You also have the negative effect that you've heard people say, and I disagree with. And Scotty, you know, being a
I've
former
known him since
athlete,
he was in high school.
you have to have a guy on this team who's going to hold other players accountable. He played with Kevin Durant. I mean, not Kevin Durant. He played with Kevin Garnett. He played with Paul Pierce, the Ray Allens, the Tony Allen, and he learned what it takes to win. So he's going to hold Coach Gentry accountable. He's going to hold his teammates accountable. He's that guy who's going to be somewhat of that agitator on the basketball team.
And they haven't had that here in New Orleans since Chris Paul.
Exactly.
All right, I got to ask you this about getting him because there was a lot of questions. He has, when things go south, not all of us have the best attitudes, and myself included. Yeah. But I don't know if I would get as many texts as maybe DeMarcus and Rajon. But my point is, those two love each other. They're both Kentucky guys. They didn't play at the same time, but you know that Kentucky contingent. We got Darius Miller, we got Anthony Davis, but they win. My point is, you see these two together with the Kings, and it was only a year, but they really bonded. How important was it for those two playing together? Is the reason Rondo being here with Boogie kind of politicking for him?
Yes, I'm glad you say that because Boogie most certainly was politicking to get Rajon here because we all understand what this league is predicated off of. A point guard driven league that's playing downhill and forcing the attack. Rajon Rondo is a guy that's going to do that. Boogie knows that when he's cutting to the lane, he's not worried about Rajon scoring. He's got his hands up ready to catch that pass because Rajon's going to dump it off. The other great thing about it is it's going to allow AD and Boogie to play off of each other, getting that high-low action going, getting that spacing. Rajon Rondo's relationship with DeMarcus Cousins and AD.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, all these Kentucky guys, they get together in the offseason.
Of course they do.
It is a huge family. These are guys who know each other, and Rajon has a high basketball IQ. The other thing that a Rajon Rondo does for this basketball team, Scotty, is think about it. The only big problem this team has really had was perimeter defense outside of Drew. We didn't have anybody that could guard. AD had to take care of everybody else. Now you have a guy with Rajon Rondo's long arms. Rajon is 6'4" with the 6'8", 6'9"
The biggest hands
wingspan.
I've ever seen on a
Huge
man
hands.
under 6'4".
Okay?
I mean, they're huge. He
Scott,
could be the
I got
best
big
soccer
hands.
goalie in the history of the game.
I've got big hands, but Rajon, his hands will engulf my hands. That said, you're looking at now a team that can defend on the perimeter and get out and push the attack on offense. We don't need Rajon shooting threes. We don't need Tony Allen shooting threes if we can defend and get out like the horses that we are and let AD trail a play.
Speaking of AD, we've spent at least over 10 minutes so far in this conversation. We haven't brought up the top 5 player in the NBA. His name is Anthony Davis. As
I've heard
you
of him.
know, you're a good friend of his. I know that. This is what everybody wants to hear about, right, New Orleans? Anthony Davis and Boogie Cousins. We've seen a sample of it, okay? And we saw a little sample where they played well. It started slow as expected, or you should have expected, I should say. Right. But how good can these guys be? And oh, by the way, will New Orleans Pelicans fans see, you see a little husky Boogie Cousins there. You're going to see a trimmed down, chiseled Boogie Cousins who's lost about 25 to 30 pounds. How effective will these two be together? I want to get your full analysis. I'm giving you the floor for a few minutes. Go.
Okay, let's be honest about it. We know there's 2 reasons why Boogie lost some of the weight and got a little bit more chiseled. We also know that we have to keep Boogie here in New Orleans.
Tell them
All
why.
right.
We know.
Okay,
It's
because
human
if
nature.
it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go here in New Orleans, yeah, he's looking for his next contract.
Sure.
Okay, so he's shopping himself as well. It doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be here in New Orleans. He does. He likes the chemistry. I saw him the other night at Target. We talked for a little bit as well. He's excited about what's about to happen with this basketball team. Granted, the West definitely got more difficult with some of the pieces that have been moved. This could easily be that Twin Towers that San Antonio had with David Robinson and Tim Duncan. The fact that he's lighter on his feet, we saw he did this summer playing in the Olympics as well. We saw Boogie more engaged, and that's been the main caveat. And you can understand that. Think about it. You're in a team in Sacramento where you don't have necessary pieces around you to be better. Now you have an AD, you have a Boogie, you have a Drew, you have a Rajon. The pieces are looking well, and it's improved his mental psyche as well. He knows he has to take this team to the next level and doing his part. He doesn't have to do it all. AD doesn't have to do it all, but now they recognize that they can do it together and be a dominant basketball team.
The Pelicans, by far, over the last 5 years, have been the most injured team in NBA history. Okay, and we started the summer with a couple more. Solomon Hill,
Hamstring.
obviously out till just about the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then Frank Jackson's going to miss a lot of time, the rookie, the second pick of the second round out of Duke. Is this a harbinger of more things to come? Again, is there a voodoo doll, somebody sticking with us? Because my point is, A, will they be able to overcome this? And B, I got to give you a quote. I sent Dell, he had just been on the show, and I sent him a text about Hill and then Jackson. And he immediately says, I can't worry about what's not here. We're looking forward. And they went out and got Tony Allen. I just got to tell you, should we worry about these guys not being here? And do you think injuries might continue to conflict us like they have for the last several years?
Okay, let's go with the Frank Jackson first and foremost, being the rookie. I really don't think he was going to get as many minutes as people thought that he was.
I would have guessed 8 to 10. That's what I would have guessed.
Exactly. Let's think about the struggles that Buddy had coming to the Pels right out of college, and he was a college All-American coming out of Oklahoma.
Sure.
Frank Jackson played one season, not even an entire season.
That's a great point.
Because of a broken foot. We put too much stock into a young 18, 19-year-old in a grown man's league. So, could he have had an impact as a scorer? Absolutely. He's able to do multiple things on the court.
He's an interesting player. You have to admit that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting player. But he wasn't going to be that guy that was going to change the landscape of the Pelicans basketball
All right,
team.
what about Solomon Hill?
Solomon Hill, he came on very well towards the end of the season. You remember how a couple years ago, before Coupon, although who's no longer with us,
May he rest in peace.
Thankfully. And it's nothing personal when I say that.
I know.
But for the past 2 seasons, we got no production out of him. We never knew when he was going to come back.
He just got paid, too.
He got paid, okay? But Solomon Hill started knocking down those corner jump shots that Coupon used to knock down. Let's not forget there are still talks going on between Dante Cunningham and the Pels, with both of them wanting to be back here.
I couldn't ask Alvin Gentry that because he's not allowed to talk about players on the team because I just had him on 2 weeks ago.
I watched.
So Dante Cunningham is a possibility still in play.
It's still in play. Okay. So we have the necessary pieces here. We also just recently signed Martell Webster to the training camp roster as well.
I remember he was a kid.
I know you had a story about Martell.
No, I
knew
knew
you
him
did.
in high school, man. I mean, dude, I had him on my show. I flew him to Atlanta.
I know. That's
He's
what I'm saying.
He's a smart guy.
Very
smart guy.
Very.
He was a top 6 pick in the NBA draft out of high school.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Okay, so, Scott, although the loss of Solomon Hill, we need to get more production, no question, from E'Twaun Moore. But I also think E'Twaun kind of got lost in the shuffle of Alvin's rotation.
Right.
Also, there were minutes where E'Twaun would come out and ball at a whole nother level, and sometimes you didn't know where he was. Not necessarily.
But he's a guy that shot 45% from 3, so he's capable if you give him some open looks.
If you give him the open looks, and this is what he's going to be able to do. Now he's going to be able to run the floor both sides because you can't put AD or Boogie in a situation. If you double team any one of those guys, Scotty, if I'm playing with AD and Boogie, this is how I'm running around the court the entire game, just like this. Ready to catch and
catch
shoot.
and shoot, baby.
That's all I'm
put on the floor. Just let me shoot. That's one thing I can do. Let's just shoot the rock.
Okay, so E'Twaun is going to have more of an intricate role on this basketball team as long as he's knocking down those shots. Alvin, on the other hand, even though we added Chris Finch, who's supposed to be an offensive guru from an assistant coaching standpoint, all right, from the Nuggets. Let's not forget the great job that they did offensively there. But I say that to simply say Alvin now is in a position where he has to manage these guys and put them in positions to be successful.
Last thing, as you sign the ball and take your gift certificate to take your lovely girlfriend.
Thank you so much.
Did I ruin your cover? I'm sorry.
Not at all.
No, you got a beautiful girl.
I am proud of her.
All right. We're going to get you on this basketball, Dell Demps, Karl Malone. We got some Alvin Gentry. We got some big. But as you sign the ball, I want you to tell the people why it was so important for Drew Holiday to still be on this team, regardless of the amount he's getting paid. Because without him, you're not going to the playoffs. With him, at least you have a nice chance.
You're absolutely correct.
So you tell people why.
Scott, the main reason why you needed to have a Drew Holiday on this basketball team is because he knows how to play with AD. He knows the system. You need someone who can score in a multitude of ways, and this is what Drew Holiday brings. I never had any concerns or consternations that he wasn't going to be with the Pelicans basketball team because in the offseason, he was here training. Although being an LA guy, he realizes he's much closer here than he is going to a dysfunctional LA basketball team.
You see, I see Will Wade's signature. You got some ballers on that ball. By the way, Dino, the fans asked for you for more time, and fans, you got it. Dino Hansen, we just gave him 20 minutes. There he is right here. We appreciate him. Hey, coming up next, we had Gus Cattengill. We've had ESPN Radio. Truck, you need to give me a little perk over here. ESPN's Dino Hansen next. We're coming with a guy that does everything around the city of New Orleans. His name, Renee Nato, coming up next on Primetime Sports.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans and miss the town each night and day? I'm longing for the feeling gets stronger each moment I stayed away. Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans and watch real sports each night and day? Zababo zabo do zee. Zababo do zee.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, man, you've already heard from Gus Cattengill. We talked some Saints, we talked some LSU, we talked Tulane, and a little Raging Cajuns as well. And just now, that was Dino Hansen. My man, Renee Nadeau, coming up next. You've seen him around this city for many years, a few decades. He's been on the sports scene. Heck, he was with WGSO back in the 70s and 80s with my boy, Tim Brando. But, man, he does ESPN college football. He's an analyst with them. He does CBS Sports Radio. He gives updates from games all the time here. You may read his stuff. It used to be sportsnola.com. Now it's crescentcitysports.com, and he covers it all, man. Saints. He does some Pelicans, of course, LSU, Tulane, and you might know him from the recruiting scene. He's been a big part of the high school recruiting scene here. He knows where everybody is going and how good they're going to do before they leave. So I can't wait to talk to him. He's the first time on the show. Renee.
Scott.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
I can't tell you how much of an honor it is, buddy, to be with you.
I appreciate that.
It's great to be with you.
It's an honor for me to have you here.
Well,
you're one of these legends in town. When I first moved back, you guys like you and Rick Gailey, guys like Eric Asher and Corey were telling me you got to get to know these guys. So it's a pleasure for me to have you, my man.
It's great to see you. You've done a great job, man.
Well, thank you, buddy. Let's get to the nitty gritty because it's not pretty around here. I mean, listen, weekends like this can discourage you. Can you give the fans of New Orleans anything to be encouraged about? Because it is just 1 week. I know the Saints have had 2 bad weeks, but let's start with the Saints. Is there any hope right here? Because you just played the New England Patriots. They're a pretty good football team.
You know, you look at the guys who are new on the team, and the drafts have come back to haunt the Saints. 2014 has been documented as no one left on the roster from the 2014 NFL draft with the New Orleans Saints.
That's not good.
And 34% of guys who are taking snaps for the New Orleans Saints are new guys on the team, free agents and rookies. And it's going to take a little while. I know you went through training camp, OTAs, and preseason games, Scott, but a lot of these guys, it takes a little while when the bullets are really flying to mesh.
Sure.
And
it doesn't help that you're playing Tom Brady in his anger. It would help to have the Carolina Panthers starting when they start with San Francisco and go Buffalo when you have 34%. No excuses made, but they had a tough start to the schedule, and it's not going to get any easier going to Carolina this week.
No, it's not. And A.J. Klein and Manti Te'o and Okafor are going to be really good players. P.J. Williams is a rookie who's really playing for the first time in 3 years. But I think it's going to take a little while to mesh. Played the Minnesota Vikings. I think they were much better than people thought they were.
They're a good football team.
They're a good football team, and they got a great defense, Scott.
Sure.
Tom Brady, unbelievable. The Saints gave up 555 yards in total offense last week. The most Sean Payton defense has ever given up is 568. But against Tom Brady, 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter.
In the first quarter, he had 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's stats that people would be happy after 3 quarters. He had after 1. He came out. The thing is, Kenny Vaccaro got benched, and I want to ask you this because you follow the game. You're a student of the game. You played the game. Mm-hmm. It just looks so easy. It looked like a final machine that the Saints used to look like, particularly in 9, 10, and particularly in 11 when they could get anything they wanted on any team. That's what Tom Brady did. Now, was it mostly what the Saints were doing, or was it just Tom being Tom?
Combination of two, but Tom Brady is a special guy. And, Von Bell is making strides as a rookie from last year, and Marcus Williams is going to be a really good rookie. I think Kenny Vaccaro, in some ways, Scott, has hit a plateau, and he can be a good player, but I think Von Bell and Marcus Williams has kind of closed the gap on him, and I think Sean Payton just made a decision to give Marcus Williams and Von Bell some more reps.
Well, I think Marcus Williams is the best of the lot.
I
mean, he's long and rangy. I was fortunate to do a Utah game last year, and I saw him in action. He's a ball hawk. He's got long arms. He's long. Does anything have to do with Kenny Vaccaro's contract playing into this, or is he just wasn't playing good football?
He wasn't playing good football,
right.
And he just wasn't carrying his own weight and playing the type of football I think he's capable of. The whole defense did not play well. They did not get a rush in the front, and the front seven didn't play well at all either. And A.J. Klein, I think, said as much.
Yeah. Offensively, they just don't look like the same Saints team. Listen, they've got 19 points the first game, 20 the second, and to be honest, those were garbage touchdowns in both those games at the end. They really could have looked a lot worse on the score. Are the days of the Saints just running through opponents? I know they always seem to have the stats at the end of the year, first, second, or third, but the eyeball test doesn't tell me that they're that good yet.
That offensive line, they made changes. Pete goes out to left tackle this past week, and Ramczyk goes to right tackle. This is not the time of year that you have to make changes and experiment, and it's just because of injuries that have happened. Teron Armstead being out, Zach Strief being out. Those are two solid, not only tackles, Scott, those are two leaders in the locker room and guys, when things get tough and they turn the thermostat up a little bit during the game, Teron Armstead and Zach Strief can kind of calm down things a little bit in the huddle. And they don't have those two guys, and that's a lot. Max Unger is good, but Willie Snead was not there, and that's a third down guy they go to a lot. Drew Brees, and you saw the game was getting a lot of pressure. They're not going to run through guys. It's scary that they are one injury away from going on the street and getting an offensive lineman to come in and start. That's scary.
I promised my audience that I wouldn't do the, hey, if you're 0-2, these are your percentage chances to go to the playoffs, and I'm not going to do it. But let's be honest. 0-3 is going to be a death knell to this team. This is almost a do-or-die situation.
What you do, and you've been around the sports long enough, Scott, what you do is take 1 week at a time. You don't look past that. Everything is concentrated on the Carolina Panthers. And they don't care who they're going to play, the Dolphins, the next week. You just worry about you're 0-0 right now, and you're playing the Carolina Panthers. And what does it have to take? What will it take to beat the Carolina Panthers? And that's all they're worried about. They're not worried about we have to keep pressure on ourselves to win this game. Is a must-win. Sean Payton is making sure that this team is not thinking of what has happened in the past. Don't look in your rearview mirror. Don't look forward. Just concentrate on what's going to happen the next 4 or 5 days. And what do we have to do to come away with our first win, and don't worry about it. As far as they're concerned, they're 0-0 right now.
All right. I don't see LSU going to the national playoff, but I'm going to say this. You mentioned one game, and they did get blown out. But if you remember, Oklahoma last year was blown out badly by Ohio State and still managed to get to the playoff. And I'm not equating LSU with Oklahoma. I'm just saying that one game can be an aberration. Do you think this LSU game is just one game? Because when I look at the rest of the SEC, only Alabama, it looks super scary. I mean, the other teams, Florida's got a great D, not much on offense. They're at least going to be competitive, I would imagine, in the rest of these games. Maybe not Alabama, but the rest of them.
I agree with that, Scott. And I've told many people and spoken to many people. And before the season began, people asked me, can LSU beat Alabama? And I said, yes, they can. But I had a feeling that LSU could beat Alabama but lose to a Mississippi State or an Ole Miss or a Tennessee. They could go 10-2 or 9-3. And I still think they can go 10-2 or 9-3. Right. I hate to keep saying percentages, but if you look at the 2D depth chart of the LSU Tigers, 36% of the guys in a 2D depth chart on offense and defense, Scott, have never taken a snap before this year, or redshirt freshmen or true freshmen. So they're learning with mistakes. You know, an NFL coach will tell you for every rookie you play, it's costing you 4 or 5 points. Well, it's not quite the same, but LSU has
every rookie. That's a lot of points. No wonder the Saints lost so bad.
But my point is, you know what I'm saying, it costs you points. But LSU has the best combo of coordinators in the country, and Dave Aranda and Matt Canada. And a lot of mistakes, drop balls, mental errors. I cannot blame on the coaches. Those players, they know it was mental errors. Now, I'm not taking away from Mississippi State. They played a good game.
They might be the second best team in the SEC.
They're a lot better. Mississippi State is better than people think.
When you look through it all, I mean, there's a lot of contenders for second best, but they are in that running. And you know what? There's a lot of flaws with all the other teams. Arkansas, Ole Miss, they all have flaws. So we'll see going down the line. Now I got to bring up Tulane. I feel there's a lot of promising things going on at Tulane. You're not going to beat Oklahoma. But you did come out and you put it to them in the beginning. You were up 14-7. I know that was a little bit of fool's goal, but do you see this Tulane team getting better as the season goes along?
I would be shocked if Tulane does not qualify for a bowl. Willie Fritz, I've done games in the past with Willie Fritz.
I'm very impressed with him.
I'm very impressed with him. And Jonathan Banks, I think, is going to be I picked a all-Louisiana team in Crescent City
He's
Sports.
Your quarterback?
He's the guy who's going to be a newcomer. A newcomer of the year in the state of Louisiana.
Who's your quarterback, by the way?
Devontae Kincaid of Grambling.
Grambling, that's right.
And because he is a lot better than people think. He put up some serious numbers last year. This is before the season started.
But back to Tulane, what part of their defense?
Defense is very good.
Yes.
Defensive secondary can hold their own. It's probably the best in the conference and one of the better ones in the country, top 25.
So Renee Nato will be shocked if they don't go at least 6-6.
No, I would be shocked.
I'm on board because I figured this would be their record now. Okay, now you got to start playing. You got Army this week, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To me, that's a must-win if you want to get to 6-6. But moving forward, UL Raging Cajuns, I got to bring my boys up from Lafayette. They have been playing some folks tough. Once again, they had the halftime lead, 21-14 against A&M. That's impressive to me. You know, A&M did run off 31 straight points and won that game, but you're in the game with some big boys.
And you go into a place that Kevin Sumlin has to win.
Yes.
And they took it right to him. They didn't back down, and yes, they didn't. It came out of the short end. But Mark Hudspeth is doing a really good job, and he's got some good athletes. And Trey Regis.
Trey Regis from Shaw.
Yeah.
I called a game where he had over 300 yards. I love that guy.
So he is. He's a good runner. He's tough. He's a redshirt freshman. He's going to have some bright days ahead. But they have a good defense, and they have a good offensive line. And I think they're going to do well. I think they don't have as much depth as maybe they would like to have, but I think the Raging Cajuns, could they beat a Texas A&M? I don't know, but they can pull a game out of their hat and maybe upset someone that people least expect.
You are a high school football aficionado as well. I happen to love the high school football game as much as any level of sports. Any teams, and I'm not just keeping this to New Orleans because we're around in the entire state, but who are some of your favorite teams in the state of Louisiana this year?
Well, let me start locally if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
The 4 teams, I think, have a great shot that fans can maybe start thinking about the second week in December in the Superdome. Is Riverside and Rummel.
Oh, yeah.
John Curtis.
Yes.
And De La Salle.
De La Salle
can play with anybody in the metro
Well, they
area.
beat St. Aug pretty good at Tulane Stadium, like 38-12, and then they beat Carr last week. That was shocking. And then they beat Ponchatoula in the early game in South Lafourche. And now they got Riverside Academy. They are scheduling like crazy over there.
They're not ducking anybody, and they got and Ryan Manelli's doing a great job, offense, defense, and special teams. They believing that Julian Gums is averaging 8.5 yards per carry. Unbelievable. And he's going to compete for the Metro Player of the Year at the end of the year if he keeps on going the way he's going.
Back to Curtis, though. I mean, this is unlike Curtis not to have won a title in a while because they have 26 of those things since the 70s, right?
That's right.
Can Curtis get one?
It's been 5 years. It seems like a lifetime since they won one, Scott.
Crazy.
But when you win 26 state titles in football, you got the recipe, and Coach J.T. Curtis has the recipe. He's got guys. He doesn't have any superstars, although he's got some college recruits. But he's got players that just know their part, they're role players, and he can be there when the smoke clears. He's got that Barnett offense, and I think Curtis has a great shot of being.
Hey, we have a gift certificate for you. Enjoy this.
Wow.
It's a great wine place. You get a little food and wine.
Thank you.
Also, as you sign the ball, we have our little media wing. I want you to give some hope and love to maybe another school in maybe Baton Rouge or Lafayette, you think, high school that might have a chance to get to the Superdome.
St. Thomas More.
Oh, in Lafayette.
St. Thomas More.
They're awesome.
He's got a great shot. And, I think that Parkview Baptist is better than they looked against John Curtis, but I think they can have a good team. I don't think they make it to the Dome, but St. Thomas More is a team you got to watch out for.
Renee Nato is everywhere. Check him out on CrescentCitySports.com. That used to be SportsNola.com. I can't thank him enough for coming in. He talked all levels of football, by the way. 3 college teams, the Saints, and then he got to high school. So I appreciate him. As I appreciate all my guests, I want to thank Dino Hanson and Gus Cattengill. This was the Information Highway Show. We didn't have any of these superstar Hall of Famers. Well, Dino might argue that because he's probably in the St. Aug Hall of Fame. However, we had a fun show. Will Hill is the greatest producer in the city of New Orleans and beyond. How about my man Kenny Juno and Jay Smooth? They're awesome. How about the Redhead Tsunami and Peter Drennan and all the good folks at WLAE and CST? Thank you so much. We'll be back next week right here on Primetime Sports. Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open.